Climate change is one of the most interesting issues in our society today because of how much the general stance on climate change alters year by year. Now, obviously parties change their stances over time, but there's few issues which receive this much attention from both the political community and the scientific community. A decade ago, Republicans were still against abortion and Democrats still supported it. But a decade ago, the outlook on climate change was very, very different. Nevertheless, today, the two parties seem to have startlingly similar stances on climate change. The media and radical members from both parties make it seem like the parties quarrel on this issue, but there actually isn't much of a disagreement here. This video won't be nearly as long as the gun control video because of how easy common ground is here. Nearly all Americans believe that climate change is real and occurring. According to a study by Yale University and George Mason University, over 85% of Americans believe that global warming is a real thing, and 62% of the public believes that global warming is anthropogenic or human caused. While the latter number seems lower, the number is consistently and rapidly increasing, indicating bipartisan belief on at least these issues. Gallup even indicated that last March, 92% of poll respondents worried at least a little bit about the quality of the environment. Only 8% worried not at all. Now, I don't exactly have to bring in facts for the Democrats believing in climate change, as we all know that's the case. Nevertheless, in case there are any doubters for the Republican attitude towards climate change, allow me to prove that the GOP is starting to come around on this issue. Ben Shapiro, who I mentioned in my last video as likely the most popular non-politician Republican in the country, has been quoted numerous times as saying that he both believes climate change is real and at least a decent portion of it is human caused. Additionally, according to NBC News, quote, a growing number of House GOP lawmakers have been increasingly willing to say those four little words, climate change is real. And they're warning the rest of their party that Republicans must push for alternative solutions before it's too late. The same article goes on to talk about Republicans on the House Energy and Commerce's Environment and Climate Change Subcommittee who believe in climate change and are convincing their fellow GOP members, such as John Shimkus, Billy Long, and Bill Flores. As a result, Republican citizens are increasingly believing in climate change, and so are Republican politicians. Therefore, the only disagreement, which I actually view as productive, is how to address climate change. The more extreme members of the Democratic Party support a radical restructuring of the economy and our society, and the radical members of the Republican Party deny climate change altogether. Nevertheless, this is not the mainstream view. I've already disproven the second part of the statement. President Trump is an outlier for the GOP and will be persuaded by his fellow Republicans eventually. To address the radical Democrats, very few Democratic politicians actually support proposals like the Green New Deal. It didn't pass in the government, with the older, more experienced Democrats realizing how much of a radical restructuring it would entail. Remember Dianne Feinstein talking to those kids? She doesn't support it, and neither does the American public. The public actually demonstrates how the Green New Deal can be modified to become a less radical and more bipartisan bill. According to a poll by Data for Progress, most people support at least some part of the Green New Deal, such as improving drinking water infrastructure and reforesting land. However, most people are opposed to rules like requiring all cars to be electric by 2030 and closing every fossil fuel plant by 2035. We can take these conclusions and use them to suggest a plan to our policymakers. Most people believe in climate change and that it must be addressed and agree on certain ways to do it. Most people agree that both curbing emissions and investing in technology can address the problem as long as we don't radically restructure the economy, so we should just continue with these things instead of letting the radicals shout their proposals.